A woman lies face down in the dirt of a burned plantation, and she has just thrown up a radish. You know this scene. You have seen it 100 times. The silhouette against a blood-red sky, the fist raised to heaven, the music swelling, the interval curtain coming down. That is the movie. That is not the book. In the novel, she is 19 years old. She has eaten nothing but a raw radish pulled out of an abandoned garden, and her empty stomach has refused it. There is no sunset. There is no raised fist. There is a starving girl lying in the soil with her cheek on the ground, too weak to stand up. And when she does stand up, she will make a promise that saves her life and costs her every single person who loves her. Because she has a way of surviving things. She puts them away. She says, "I'll think about it tomorrow." 9 months ago, her biggest problem was a boy who wouldn't marry her. 9 months earlier, a wide porch in North Georgia, April of 1861. Scarlett O'Hara is 16 years old, and Margaret Mitchell opens the novel by telling you the truth about her in the first 6 words. Scarlett O'Hara was not beautiful, but men seldom realized it when caught by her charm. Green eyes with no touch of hazel, a pointed chin, and an absolute, unexamined conviction that the world exists in order to arrange itself around her. On either side of her sit the Tarleton twins, red-haired, identical, arguing about a war that hasn't started yet. Scarlett is bored. War is nothing. War is men talking. And then one of them mentions it the way you'd mention weather. Tomorrow, at the barbecue, they're going to announce the engagement. Ashley Wilkes is going to marry his cousin, Melanie Hamilton. The porch goes quiet. The war stops mattering. It never really starts mattering again. She rides home through the dusk and meets her father coming up the road. Gerald O'Hara, florid, Irish, loud, 60 years old, a man who won this entire plantation in an all-night poker game and has never been ashamed of it for 1 second. She asks him if it's true. He tells her it is. And then, watching his daughter's face, he tries to hand her the only comfort he owns. "Land is the only thing in the world that amounts to anything," he shouts, arms swinging. "For 'tis the only thing in this world that lasts, and don't you be forgetting it. 'Tis the only thing worth working for, worth fighting for, worth dying for." Scarlett looks at him with the flat contempt of a 16-year-old. "Oh, Pa, you talk like an Irishman." Remember that. She rejects it completely. It will take a war, a famine, and a corpse before she understands he was right. 12 Oaks, the Wilkes plantation. White columns, long tables under the trees, an entire county eating in the shade. Scarlett arrives with a plan, and the plan is spite. If Ashley won't have her, she'll make him watch every other man in Georgia want her. So she works the lawn, flirting, laughing, collecting boys like buttons, and she is magnificent at it. And it is completely wasted because Ashley keeps looking at Melanie. And one man watches her do it and isn't fooled for a second. He's standing at the foot of the staircase, black-haired, swarthy, built like a barrel, with an expression that says he has already priced her and found the number low. Nobody will introduce him, because no decent family in Georgia will admit to knowing him. His name is Rhett Butler. He smiles at her like a man who has just looked straight through a locked door. Now look past the tables for a moment, because the novel would rather you didn't. Somebody cooked that barbecue. Somebody carried it out and served it, and will clear it away and is owned. There are more enslaved people at 12 Oaks that afternoon than there are guests on the lawn. Mitchell's narrator tells you they're happy. Not a character, the narrator, in her own voice, for 1,000 pages, that they are contented and loyal and fond of their owners and proud of their place in the house. It is the foundation this entire novel is built on, and it is a lie. It was a lie when she wrote it. W.E.B. Du Bois had published The Refutation the year before this book came out. It won the Pulitzer Prize anyway, and it taught the 20th century its history. So hold both, all the way through. The tragedy is real. So is the propaganda holding it up. Inside, in the cool of the library, she finally gets Ashley alone. And Scarlett O'Hara does the bravest and stupidest thing she will do in the first half of this book. She tells him she loves him. She asks him to take her instead. He doesn't laugh at her. That's what makes it unbearable. He's gentle. He tells her he's marrying Melanie, that Melanie is like him, that Scarlett is fire and life, and he is something else. He says it kindly. Kindness is the one weapon she has absolutely no defense against. So she slaps him across the face, and when he's gone, she throws a vase at the fireplace. And from the sofa behind her, where he has been lying the entire time, listening to every word of it, Rhett Butler sits up and applauds. There is no floor under her. There is nowhere in that house to go. An hour later, the news comes that the war has begun. Scarlett does not care about the war. Scarlett cares that a house full of people just watched her get refused, and that in 2 weeks, Ashley Wilkes is going to stand at an altar while she watches. So she finds the nearest available boy, Charles Hamilton, Melanie's brother, sweet, dazzled, harmless, 17 years old, and he has adored her for exactly 1 afternoon. She marries him. Not in 2 weeks, in 1. She gets to the altar first. She stands in a wedding dress and looks across the church at Ashley, and this is the moment to notice what kind of book you're actually holding. To win a single second of eye contact, she has just spent an entire human being. Charles is thrilled. Charles has no idea. That is the engine of this novel, running for the first time in the open on page 200. Charles Hamilton goes to war and never fires a shot. He dies in camp of measles and the pneumonia that came in behind it, one of the tens of thousands that disease killed before the shooting ever reached them. He is dead within 2 months of the wedding. Scarlett is 17, pregnant, and a widow. Her son is born and named Wade Hampton Hamilton after his father's commanding officer, and she looks at the baby with something close to bewilderment. Because here is what widowhood means in Georgia in 1861. Black clothes for the rest of your natural life. No dancing, no music, no laughing in public, no future. You are finished at 17, and the entire county will police it for you. She sits in that black dress in her mother's parlor and works out that she has buried herself alive over a man who said no to her in a library. And then a letter comes from Atlanta. Melanie invites her to stay. Aunt Pitty Pat's house, war work, bandages. It is meant to be a rest cure for a grieving young widow. Scarlett arrives and finds a city exactly her own age. Raw, loud, booming, throwing itself into a war, and she is expected to sit in the corner of it in black crypt and be sad. Then comes the bazaar, a hall full of dancing to raise money for the hospital. Scarlett is parked at a booth in her mourning, watching girls her own age spin past her. And a voice from the floor bids $150 in gold, an obscene amount of money, a year's wages, for the honor of leading the reel with Mrs. Charles Hamilton. The room stops breathing. It's Rhett Butler. Every woman in that hall waits for the widow to refuse. She is out on the floor before he finishes the sentence. Atlanta never forgives her for it. Rhett doesn't care, and slowly, so does she. He starts turning up. He runs the Union blockade for profit and says so out loud at dinner tables where men are making speeches about the glorious cause. He tells a room full of Confederate officers that the South is going to lose, that you cannot fight a war on cotton and good manners against a country that has factories. They nearly shoot him for it. He is also right. And he brings her things. A bonnet from Paris, green as her eyes, the first beautiful object she has touched in a year. He tells her they're two of a kind, both selfish, both frauds, both too honest to swallow the story everybody else is dying for. She tells herself she despises him. She says it the way she says everything she doesn't want to look at. I'll think about it tomorrow. Christmas, 1863. Ashley comes home on furlough, and Scarlett spends a week watching him belong to somebody else. Then he goes back, and Melanie, trusting, glowing, completely oblivious, reads his letters aloud to her. And in one of them, Ashley Wilkes says the truest thing anybody says in this novel. For I am fighting for the old days, The old ways I love so much, but which, I fear, are now gone forever, no matter how the die may fall. For win or lose, we lose just the same. He isn't fighting to win. He knows there's nothing left to win. He's fighting because the world he was built for is already over, and he cannot picture himself inside any other one. And before he goes, he asks Scarlett for one thing. Look after Melanie. She promises. Of course she promises. It costs her nothing to promise. That promise is about to nearly kill her. 1863 becomes 1864, and the lists start coming. They post the casualties in the town square, and an entire county learns how to read a column of names standing up in the street. The Tarleton twins are on one of them, the two boys arguing about the war on Scarlett's porch on the first page of this book. So are their brothers, every Tarleton son. Their mother has nobody left. Scarlett works the hospital because she has to, and she's bad at it. And Mitchell is honest about that. The smell, the gangrene, the boys asking for water, the surgeon working behind a curtain. She hates every hour of it. She does not become a better person for it. Mitchell will not give you that. Then Melanie is pregnant and cannot travel. Then the news comes that Ashley is missing. And Sherman turns toward Atlanta. The shells arrive in July. Atlanta empties. Anyone who can go, goes. Aunt Pittypat goes. The wounded come in faster than the trains can carry them out. The doctors stop pretending they can save everybody. And Scarlett cannot leave. Because Melanie is due any day and cannot be moved, and there is not one woman left in Atlanta willing to stay behind with her, and Scarlett gave her word to a man in an orchard 8 months ago. So she sits in a shaking house in a city being taken apart, waiting for a baby that is going to arrive in the middle of an artillery barrage, with no doctor, because every doctor in Georgia is elbow deep in somebody dying. She has exactly one comfort. Prissy, the young house slave who came up with her from Tara, has assured her, many times proudly, that she knows all about delivering babies. Melanie's labor starts on the day Atlanta falls. Scarlett sends Prissy running for the doctor. The doctor cannot come. There are men bleeding to death in the street outside the depot. He tells her she'll have to manage. So Scarlett turns to the girl who has been promising for months that she knows exactly what to do. And Prissy admits she was lying. She has never delivered a baby. She has never once been allowed in the room. She invented all of it because it made her feel important, and she is barely more than a child herself, and now she is so frightened she can hardly speak. Scarlett grabs her and shakes her and screams at her. And then Scarlett O'Hara, 16 months out of a barbecue where her worst problem was a boy, rolls her sleeves up in a 100-degree bedroom with shells landing 4 streets away and delivers the baby herself. And here's the strange part. She's good at it. That night, she sends for the only man in Atlanta who might still get them out. Rhett comes with a horse that should already be dead and a wagon that's barely a wagon. They load Melanie onto the boards, still bleeding. The baby, Wade, Prissy, and they drive out through the burning of Atlanta. Everybody knows this image. Almost everybody has the reason wrong. Sherman did not burn Atlanta that night. The Confederate Army did. Retreating, they set fire to their own ammunition depots and supply stores so the Union couldn't have them. 80 carloads of shells going up in the middle of a city with people still in it. The South burned Atlanta to keep it out of Northern hands. Scarlett drives a wagon straight through the middle of it with a newborn in the back, and the sky over her head is white. They clear the fire. They reach the dark road south. And on that road, Rhett Butler stops the wagon and climbs down. He tells her he's going to join the army. Rhett, the cynic, the profiteer, the man who has spent 3 years telling every fool in Georgia that the cause is a lie and they are all going to die for nothing, is going to enlist. Tonight, at the precise moment the war is lost. Because it is lost. Because, he says, he has always had a weakness for lost causes. Once they're really lost. Then he kisses her, in the dark, on a road, beside a wagon holding a woman who nearly died 6 hours ago. And Scarlett curses him with everything she has. and he laughs at her, and he walks off into the dark and leaves her there. She is 19 years old. She picks up the reins, 15 miles in the dark, with a horse dying between the shafts. Past burned houses, past a countryside Sherman's army has already walked through, which is a thing you have to see to understand, not a battlefield, an absence. Chimneys standing with nothing attached to them, cattle shot where they were grazing, silence where a county used to be. And Scarlett drives, and the question sits in her chest and will not get out, and Mitchell finally writes it down, the sentence this entire novel is named for. Was Tara still standing? Or was Tara also gone with the wind which had swept through Georgia? That's the title. That's the whole thing. Not a romance, not a war epic. A 19-year-old asking, in the dark, whether the only place she has ever been safe still exists. She gets there at dawn. Tara is standing. The Yankees used it as a headquarters. That's the only reason it wasn't burned. It is standing, and it is empty. The cotton is burned. The livestock is gone or shot in the pen. The people who were enslaved here have walked away, which is the one unambiguously good thing that happens in this half of the book. And the novel does not see it that way. There is no food. Not a little food. None. Her sisters are in bed with typhoid. Her father comes out onto the porch, and he is smiling and pleasant and vague. He asks Scarlett whether she has come to visit. Gerald O'Hara, who won this land in a card game and shouted about it on the road, his mind is gone. And Scarlett asks for her mother. Ellen O'Hara died of typhoid the day before yesterday, nursing the neighbors. There is no adult left in the world, and every face at Tara turns to look at her. So she walks to 12 Oaks, because there might be food left in the gardens behind the cabins. 12 Oaks, the white columns, the barbecue. The library where a boy told her no is a chimney and a heap of blackened stone. There's nothing in the garden. She digs and turns up one radish. She eats it raw, dirty, straight out of the ground, and it's so peppery that her eyes stream, and her empty stomach throws it back up on the spot. And Scarlett O'Hara lies down in the dirt and retches until there is nothing left in her, and then she simply stays there, face down, cheek on the ground, the earth as soft as a pillow, too weak to get up. No red sky, no raised fist, no orchestra. A starving girl lying in the soil, in the ruins of the world she was raised to inherit. And after a long time, she gets up. She gets up because there is nothing else left to do. She settles the heavy vegetable basket across her arm. It cuts into her flesh the whole way, and she looks back at the black stones of 12 Oaks one last time. And Mitchell writes, there was no going back, and she was going forward. And then she says it, out loud, on an empty road, to nobody at all. As God is my witness, as God is my witness, the Yankees aren't going to lick me. I'm going to live through this, and when it's over, I'm never going to be hungry again. No, nor any of my folks. If I have to steal or kill, as God is my witness, I'm never going to be hungry again. Listen to the middle of it. If I have to steal or kill. She means it. She will do both. And Mitchell adds one quiet line, almost a warning. But Scarlett was never to look back. That's the girl who said, I'll think about it tomorrow, grown up now and armed. It saves her life. It is also going to cost her everyone who loves her. A week later, a Yankee straggler walks into the hall at Tara. He's alone. He's a deserter, and he's come to loot. He has a pistol on his hip. He's looking at Ellen O'Hara's sewing box. Scarlett is at the top of the stairs, and the girl who used to faint on cue comes down them with Charles's pistol held behind her skirt, and she does not warn him, and she does not threaten him, and she does not hesitate. The noise brings Melanie. Melanie, who 6 weeks ago nearly died giving birth, who can barely stand upright, and who arrives at the top of the staircase having dragged Charles's cavalry saber up there with her, ready to use it. The two women look at each other over the body. Then they bury him in the arbor. Take the gold out of his wallet, and never speak of it again. Whatever you think Melanie Wilkes is, you're thinking of the movie. And then Scarlett does the thing the film never really shows you. She takes over. She puts her sisters into the cotton field. She puts the house servants who stayed into the field too, work they were raised to consider beneath them, and the novel treats their protest as comedy, which tells you exactly whose side it's on. She goes into the rows herself, in the sun, and her hands split open. The whole county despises her for it. She does not care. And somewhere out in that field, hauling a cotton sack, 19 years old, her mother a month dead, Gerald's speech comes back to her, the one she laughed at on the road at 16. Land is the only thing that lasts, the only thing worth working for, worth fighting for, worth dying for. Standing in the dirt, she finally hears what her father was telling her. Tara was worth fighting for. That is the moment Scarlett O'Hara is born. In the spring of 1865, the war ends. It doesn't end in a surrender ceremony, not for Scarlett. It ends as a slow trickle of men walking up the road, barefoot, lousy, half of them not coming back at all. The Confederacy simply stops existing, and the survivors come home to find out what's left of their lives. Ashley Wilkes walks up the drive at Tara from a prison camp in Illinois, and Melanie runs to him, and Scarlett watches it from the window. And Scarlett has done it. Against every reasonable expectation in the world, she has done it. Everybody at Tara is alive. Everybody is fed. There's cotton in the field and a roof overhead. She kept her word to a man in an orchard, and she kept all of them breathing, and the war is over. She has won. She has about 3 weeks. The paper comes in January of 1866. Tara's taxes have been raised, not adjusted, raised deliberately to a number nobody in that county could pay, by men who want the land and know exactly what they're doing. $300. Scarlett has survived a war, a siege, a famine, a childbirth, and a killing. She does not have $300. There is not $300 in the whole county. And she stands on the porch of the house she bled for and understands something the shooting never taught her. An army can be survived. A piece of paper cannot be shot. There is exactly one man she knows with that kind of money. He's in a Yankee jail in Atlanta. He's about to hang, and he knows her far too well to be lied to. She looks at her mother's green velvet curtains. Next time, Scarlett gets everything she swore she'd get, the money, the mills, the man, and finds out what it cost. That's where this stops being a romance and starts telling the truth the movie spent 50 years hiding. She said she'd think about it tomorrow. Tomorrow's coming.